somebody who has sort of met the Queen in her role when she was executive personal assistant, personal secretary of our late Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela Tata Madiba. Zelda Lechranch, welcome to today on ENCA this afternoon. It's so good to talk to you. You are one of few people who has been in the presence of Queen Elizabeth II when you were serving our beloved Tata Madiba so many years ago. Just give us some recollections. What's been top of mind for you following the death of Queen Elizabeth II?
Dan, I heard your, first of all, hello. I heard your previous discussion about whether she is the monarchy is a symbol of unification. And the first thing that comes to mind is that the Queen was really a person that anyone could relate to. She had that ability, very similar to Madiba, that she could put anyone at ease in her presence. And as you see the outpour of love and support from the people of Britain and all over the world, it is, that part of the Queen that that resonates with people. So I think, the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is the warm friendship that she had with Madiba. It was indeed, sometimes the exchanges they had were laughable. At one occasion, Madiba walked up to her and when he greeted her, he said to her, he commented about her weight and he said, "Elizabeth, you've lost weight." And of course, the Queen couldn't contain her laughter because no one, I think, dared ever comment about her weight. So it was a light moment. And later in years, Mrs. Graça Machel said to Madiba, "But you cannot call her Elizabeth." And he said, "Why not? She calls me Nelson." There was always the utmost respect between these two people, and when they met, it was on equal footing. And that is what comes to mind now that I see how people pay tribute and say farewell to their Queen.
Yeah, it looks like in the presence of Madiba, she managed to be herself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Outside the constraints of protocol and what dictates both of them, or what dictated both of them, the formalities, the protocol, the seriousness, they could really connect as human beings. It's two people that really understood what it meant to dedicate their entire lives to the service of their own people. And I think that was the point on which they connected so well.
Yes, and there's been mixed feelings and mixed views on her passing. And I interviewed Silo Hatang, the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, just the other day after they issued a statement expressing condolences and expressions of sadness about the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. But she when she came to South Africa, I'm trying to remember the year, I think it was 96 or 95. 95.
95.
I was on Radio 702, and at the time I said, I'm not a fan of British royalty and royal family. For me, it's more about democracy and stuff. And I was invited to the dinner, that's a banquet, I don't know what it's called, official name, that took place in Sandton. So I was one of the few journalists with John Robbie, my colleague at the time, who happened to be in the same room with the Queen. And she was there just being herself, quietly and stuff, with Madiba the giant, standing tall and proud in the room, himself. So people are saying, but she missed an opportunity to apologize, for example, for what happened in the past in terms of colonization. What are your thoughts, Zelda?
Dan, I think it's a very complicated, complex issue that has to be discussed, and this is a time, after she's been buried, it's an opportune time for us now to discuss it. I do feel also that there needs to be an acknowledgement, at least in words. I read through a few of Madiba's speeches during those years, just to try and understand also what his feelings were. As you know, the Queen didn't visit South Africa during apartheid, and that was her way of not giving legitimacy to the apartheid regime. As soon as we joined the Commonwealth, through Commonwealth systems, South Africa received quite handsome contribution towards the reconstruction and development program. So there were these small things, as a person, as an Afrikaner who also know the history of the Anglo-Boer War. There's lots to be said. But I do feel that, Madiba also advocated that we shouldn't allow the past. We should discuss these things, yes, absolutely, but we shouldn't allow the past to prohibit us from moving forward. It should be a stepping stone on which we learn from the past rather than it holding us back. So I think, that would have been his views. Allow these structures, there's good cooperation, and there's been very good cooperation with Britain. Allow these structures to take care of these things, but let us also discuss what these things mean to us and as a generation now. I have no doubt in my mind that King Charles will modify and reform the system, but that is also something for the British people to decide on and to vote on. That's not an outsider like me that cannot dictate to the British people about that.
Yeah, no. We just hearing your views. We're sharing as we share, as we reflect. That's the word I was looking for. As we reflect on this. Yeah. So I mean, I've been listening to a number of commentators. I've read reports. I've listened to speeches. In studio with me, I've got Bishop Charles May from the Diocese of Highveld of the Anglican Church here, and he was making the same point about how Queen Elizabeth II was perceived as a leader of service. So more servant leadership than I'm your queen, I'm in charge, I'm the monarch, and that's missing sadly from many of our leaders today. And Madiba had the same mindset of servant leadership. Absolutely,
Dan. And I think the important thing, that I cannot stress enough is that she was a matriarch in still a patriarchal world. And for our generation, that will be the last matriarch that we see as a monarch. For generations now, it'll be going back to men. So that is very important to me, that she could conduct herself and that she carried herself with such dignity through a very, very difficult history of Britain.
Yeah, and that's something not to be lost. I mean, sometimes we forget she was a woman. She was very young in 1952 when she was put on the throne and made queen after King George VI, her father, had died while she was visiting Kenya here on our continent.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Zelda, for your reflections and your time and just telling us about some of those light moments when Madiba met Queen Elizabeth II. I mean, I can't believe, well, I can actually, that Madiba would have said, hey, Elizabeth, you've lost weight. I mean, you don't mention weight with any lady anywhere, before you get into trouble. Thank you very much. That's Zelda Likhanchi, former executive PA of our beloved Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. And she was just reflecting on some of those moments. I mean, just listening to Zelda on the reflections that we're making about how, in the presence of Nelson Mandela, Queen Elizabeth II became just a normal self. It's beautiful to reflect on that.
It is beautiful because she really showed that she was human like everybody else. And she saw humanity in people, and that's why, I mean, the number of people on the streets and throughout the world watching it, say she was, after all, a human being and treated people.
Yeah, and other messages for you, Bishop. I mean, you've been following. You mentioned earlier that you watched and listened to a sermon by the Bishop of York earlier on in regard to this. What's top of mind for you as a South African as you reflect on this life of Queen Elizabeth II? We are watching like millions of other people around the world, and we had a relationship. I mean, she visited South Africa in '95, as I said. I was one of those few media people who was invited to that state banquet dinner in Sandton with Tata Madiba and them, and there's no other